Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this chart reading group. Today we're working with the chart of Razi, one of the new members of our group. There she is, she's waving. And it's a really, really interesting chart. We were just sort of talking before we started recording. I'm really looking forward to working with this chart today. Just a breakdown, looking at the breakdown of the chart, we've got a lot of cardinal energy. So there's a lot of forward moving energy in this chart. We've got a lot of fixed energy, so that's an interesting contrast between the two. We don't have a lot of mutable energy, so that's an interesting contrast in this chart. We've got a lot of very direct, very strong energy in there. In terms of elements, we've got an abundance of fire, we have an abundance of air. Not too much, but more than, just the middle line. And we've got a little bit less earth and a little bit less water. So again, it's kind of balanced in that regard. In terms of
Yeah.
house modalities, we have a lot of angular energy, an
Mhm.
overabundance almost of angular energy. And again, too, that's very, very strong energy. That's really,
Mhm.
really amps up that cardinal energy we're seeing in the chart there too. So we've got a lot of that. A fragment of succedent energy and a tiny bit of cadent energy. So I don't know about you guys, but I'm getting a lot of strength off this chart. Um, and I got curious when I was working with this chart
Yeah.
for a while. Razi, I went to Facebook and had a look at your profile on the front, and the picture up the top of you've got that Mentat quote from the June books, about fear being the mind killer. And I thought, yeah, I just nodded at that point when I saw that.
Dune
So
is
that
one of my
just
favorite
isn't
movies.
it? Yeah, I read the
Yeah.
books back in high school, and it's stuck with me. It was amazing when I watched the movies. In my mind, it all just fell into
hmm
place. I had not forgotten a thing. Um, so that's just a breakdown of what I've seen. It's a locomotive chart. It's being pulled by Pluto, so that's just taken all that strength and then cranked it up a bit more. I'm curious what people have seen, what people see in this chart, and what their takeaway is in this. Anybody got any thoughts?
I agree with what you said. I see the same thing you saying
Mm,
with the modalities, the elements, like a lot of forward movement, probably a bit stubborn. Don't really like change.
hmm
Um, and I actually thought the chart was seesaw. So this is locomotive.
mm.
It's not a seesaw, it's a locomotive.
No, I get a locomotive from this, but yeah, that's what I saw in this chart. Well, let's explore both. Let's see where we come from. That sometimes it just comes down to what planets you put in and what planets you don't.
Gotcha.
But with that moon sitting there right in the middle, I'm leaning more towards a locomotive on that chart.
Okay. Well, I'm agree
Yeah.
with you because I'm not that I'm not that advanced in the patterns. I think I just thought it was seesaw because I remember something like if you got even amounts on both sides of the chart, it could be seesaw. So maybe I was
Mm,
wrong about that. But if you said locomotive, I think I'm agree with what you're saying because I wouldn't know for certain. It
okay.
was an assumption.
Do we see any s- super active points on the chart? Things that see this it's interesting. There's so many not contradictions. You
It
know,
is.
I know, but one of the things that struck me about this, when we do this sort of work, when we start meeting people like ourselves, like this group, for example, when we start talking and start sharing experiences and things like that, one of the common things that binds us together tends to be difficulty in the chart. We tend to have this rogue Saturn that's kicking the absolute crap out of all the other planets on our chart. And that somehow brings us all together into some sort of survivor group, that we've all moved through all of this stuff and struggled forth and been forced to confront our own spirituality and our own sort of limitations. Generally, when I look at the charts of people in the group, and a lot of it, almost every chart we've had since we've done this chart reading group has had that kind of energy. You can look in there and say, that's the point where this trouble has come up. That's probably what's brought this person to spirituality.
Mhm.
Your chart, on the other hand, it's almost like a perfectly curated chart. It's everything's seems to be just placed just right in order to be able to
Mhm.
And I'm not saying that you haven't had struggle in your life. I'm not saying that there hasn't been difficulty. But in terms of evolution, of growth, of direction, there's such an abundance of it in this chart. It's
Hmm.
incredible by contrast to a lot of the other charts that we see. So I just thought I'd throw that out there. Somebody else might have a completely different experience based on what they're seeing on this chart. But I look at this to me is a beautiful chart. There's some real interesting stuff happening here. So I'm just throwing
Are we
that out
think
there. That's my takeaway.
are we thinking that because of the even amount look like an even amount of the aspects? That's what I was looking at. Was that what you was thinking at? Because it's like squares and it doesn't look like the squares is overpowering the triangles, or the triangles is overpowering the squares that kind of like it go together or it's
There-
even.
There's there's a definite balance in the chart. This is one of the charts, a few charts I've seen that's got a mystic rectangle right in the middle. We've got those
Mm-hmm.
two trines, those two sextiles linked together in a box and two oppositions there. The difficult
Right.
points on the chart are the oppositions, but they're already linked up to points that are going to naturally just lead that energy off into placements where that tension can
Mm-hmm.
alleviate and where growth can happen. They can actually become positive and charged growth points on the chart. We've got the
Mm-hmm.
North Node up there in Gemini in the ninth house, and we've got that third house energy down the bottom with Neptune conjunct the South Node. We've got these points on the chart. For example, this is the one that got me. That if we're looking at Pluto as the lead planet here, we've got Pluto conjunct Saturn. These are the two heavy hitters of the zodiac,
Mm-hmm. Yes,
but
sir.
they're conjunct one another. So you could be an absolute monster of a personality if you wanted to. But when I look at
Mm-hmm.
that Pluto rules Scorpio, which rules your
Scorpio.
Saturn, and
Mm-hmm.
Saturn is exalted in Libra, which is your Pluto. So, in order for those planets to work well, they need to take on each other's qualities, and
Mm-hmm.
that's a really interesting mix right there. You know what I mean? We've got all this Sagittarius energy going on at the bottom of the chart here. We've got Jupiter, which is the in its domicile in Sagittarius, conjunct
Mm-hmm.
Uranus. So you could be an absolute wild card. Could be chaotic, unreliable, a bit of a bully, all of that sort of stuff. But then all of this energy is retrograde, so it's just turned the heat down just enough to curb that potential energy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we've got a sun that's happy where it is. We've got a moon that's the alleviation point for this T square down here at the bottom of the chart. Um, and we've got again this mystic rectangle in the middle. That's so it's just like a temperature controlled room. That's everything's just been put just right. And you know there's energy flowing in places that almost guarantee growth. So it's a wonderful chart from that point of view. That's what I'm saying. We might talk today, and your life may be on fire. You know, you might be having a completely different experience. But I just see so
Mm.
much potential with this. So
I got a
that's
question.
That-
that's
What is
me.
the mystic rectangle? Rectangle.
You see this blue rectangle in the middle of your chart?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a placement there. The blue, they're positive aspects on the chart, so energy's flowing
Mm-hmm.
beautifully across there. And then you've got
Mm-hmm.
these two oppositions sitting right in the middle of that rectangle. Now, oppositions can be very, very difficult points to work with. That's the two types of energy in direct collision with each other, and they're grating against each other. But when they're a part of a mystic rectangle like this, these alleviation points, this Neptune conjunct the south node and your north node up the top here, that just offers points where this energy can be resolved and where growth can happen. And when you activate these parts, it releases the tension from these oppositions. And they're probably the most challenging points in your chart. And just in case that's not enough, you've also got this T square in this opposition down here that's pointing off to your moon. So your Aquarius moon's another area, you know, even through family, when things get too much, even family, whether the experiences are positive or negative, and it's interesting with an Aquarius moon, I don't know how that might play out in a family environment, but even that's going to
Mm-hmm.
alleviate a lot of that tension as well. It's going to challenge you enough to make you want to grow, but it's also going to help you make sense of the other parts of your life that may be in conflict. So there's all this lovely energy. There's only one planet that's not really happy where it's placed. That's your Mars sitting there in Taurus, but that's in its detriment. It's not weak. It's just like they're in the wrong place at the wrong time. It's just as strong as it ever was. But then you've got Mercury and Aries sitting on top of that. So it's like a very large tank being driven by a very small but very mouthy man. You know what I mean? That's in your house of relationships. So I don't know how that's playing out, but we're going to talk about that. So you know, that's my takeaway. And I'm doing a lot of talking. I don't want to ambush this, but I really like this chart. I thought there's a lot of really good stuff happening here.
The way you say it, the way you said that one part, it makes it sound like Chihuahua energy.
Chihuahua on a tank. That's the thing.
Yes.
Yeah. How does that sound? Does that sound like there might be a bit of that?
Yeah.
Just
Just
a
a little
little.
bit. Just a little
Just a little.
bit.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Right. Well, um, that was the most excellent breakdown I heard. I can't follow that.
Oh, sorry. That's not what I wanted to do.
You broke that all the way down. I like the
Well,
way
it
you
may
did
be
that.
wrong. Like I said, it may be wrong. She may be, her life might be struggle and turmoil, and she may have you know, very, very introverted personality. But again, I went to your profile and I looked at your profile photo and I thought, does she blink? You know, you're just looking straight at the camera. And I thought, no, I think she's pretty comfortable with that energy. So
I promise I do blink. Sometimes I blink too much, and sometimes I'm like,
okay,
don't look at me.
okay.
Don't look at me. I don't exist.
It explores the middle ground between sort of warm and confrontational at the same time. You're just directing, smiling,
Yeah.
but staring straight at the camera at the same time. You know, it's like, I think I like her, but she might beat me up. I don't know. It's just that's my thoughts.
That's
Somebody else,
exactly,
please.
yes, that's exactly the energy that I picked up from this chart
Good.
too. She's a wild card, definitely. She could be the nicest person that you know, or if you make her mad, that would be a mistake. I can definitely see that. So that Mars energy in the seventh house sitting there with the sun and with Mercury, that's the house of relationships. That's what gives me that idea.
Mm,
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that she's fire driven big time.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I see that she has a yod pointing up to her midheaven and the north node, and that's the area of career. And I'm sorry, that's the ninth house is the area of higher learning and spirituality, correct? But it's very close to her midheaven or her house of career. So I wanted to look at that too because the yod does point to that. That's the apex.
Can you show us the yard? Which one is actually the yard, please?
Yes. So the yod. So if you, how are we going to do this? If you look at the chart and you look down there where the south node is in the third house, the
Yes, ma'am.
yod, it has Jupiter, the moon, and Uranus, I believe, is what's involved in the yod.
Okay.
Jupiter. Okay, so Uranus, Jupiter, and the moon at the bottom. And then they point up to the north node up there in Gemini at 28 degrees, almost into the 10th house. So that's where I see the yod pattern.
I got you.
And that to me that it kind of suggests that she's here for a purpose, like she has a higher purpose, something that is fated, because you know the yod is like the finger of God,
the spiritual,
yes.
absolutely.
So that's what I see right there, and you know, and in the third house, it's full, but the planets are retrograde, which, like he just mentioned, which means that the energy is a little muted. So she's not turned up all the time. She's able to kind of keep it balanced, and the chart's really balanced, which tells me she's a pretty balanced individual. All of her energy's balanced, and she's a Libra rising, so I know she's balanced. You know what I mean? And that Aquarius moon tells me she's very intellectual and really smart. And then of course the sun in Aries, you know, that's her driving force. So she's always moving forward. If there's a challenge, she's gonna rise above it always. And Mars in that house right there also gives me that idea, because Mars is the planet of action and communication, and the sun all together in relationships. That sounds like a good placement to me, as long as you don't make her mad.
I agree. Me too.
I promise I try not to get mad at everybody.
Well, well, some people, you just can't.
You said that in just the kind of way we want to explore, actually,
Yeah.
didn't she?
Yeah, she's like at everybody. Like,
Mm.
Well, I tend to be very nice and I try to be very understanding because sometimes people are just gonna people. But like my thing is like I don't think I've really been able to, how's the word to say it? Be effectively mad if that's the case.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because I know like once I start getting like mad
Scary.
and riled up, one of the things that happens is I start stuttering. I might start crying because I'm frustrated because murder is wrong and I cannot do that,
Mm-hmm. 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 Yes.
That's Mars and
Yes.
Taurus energy you're talking about there, and a frustrated Mercury that doesn't know how to deal with it, I guess. Stop-start
Mhm.
energy, conflict. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
and the fact that you have your moon in Aquarius tells me, like I said, you're pretty intelligent, and you probably have a problem with people that don't have a lot of common sense, but you're pretty good at letting things go. Like I said, you're very balanced with that Libra rising, so you can kind of give people, just let them be. But I can see where you could get aggravated, like we all can. But I can definitely see that. I'm an Aquarius
Yeah.
sun, so and Libra rising, so um, I struggle with that too. So the fact that some people just don't think, and and you just want to shake them and go, "What? Just think about it. Will you just think about it?" I kind of get that energy a little bit. So, and
Well,
that's
let's
what I mean
close
by
that.
people making you mad. Not just people making you mad, but just people not using their ability to think, and that just frustrating you. That's what I meant by that. Carry on.
Yeah.
Well, let's close that circuit because that's part of a T-square, and we've got Pluto conjunct Saturn. And to me, that's the elephant in the room. That's a really interesting placement there. And again, too, we saw that Pluto rules Scorpio, and that Saturn's exalted in Libra. So those two working together are a powerful partnership if you can find balance. And by having Libra involved in that whole synergy down there, balance is something that's sought. And how do we rectify that? And like when I look at that, and I look at that stop-start energy up there over in the seventh house, how does our sense of individuality measure up against the concessions we need to make in relationships and partnerships and things like that? Are we confident doing that? Do we feel like we're losing part of ourselves? Are we too powerful for that? Does it take away from us to compromise, to work around other people and things like that? And sometimes we don't compromise, not because it feels like a waste of time, or we don't have the strength, we don't have the instincts to compromise. Sometimes we don't compromise because it's too difficult, or it exposes our weaknesses as well. And it makes us confront parts of ourselves we're not comfortable sharing with other people or for other people seeing. There's a lot of hidden energy in that first house. It's powerful, it's strong. When you look at the profile photo, it looks like it's going to either put a bullet in you or give you a hug. But how does that measure up in a relationship environment? And we're seeing that T-square off down to Mars moon down there in the fourth house, which really doesn't give us any clear answers at all. How does that play out? In a way, it feels like looking back energy more than looking forward energy. I mean, we look at the home as where we've come from, not what we're moving towards. We look at a moon in Aquarius, we look at emotional detachment and things like that. Is that a solution? Is that a problem? These are the questions I'd ask myself when I look at that, and the questions I'd ask. I can see you nodding there, Razi. So I'm interested to hear what your take is on that too. Do you find it easy to balance the individual versus the partnership and relationship? And again, too, you're so strong in so many areas. When you talk about when you get angry and you start stuttering, and in a way, maybe it exposes some weaknesses you're not comfortable showing and things like that. I'm just curious.
Probably. I haven't really been in that many actual relationships. Um, it was funny because I actually had talked to one guy. I wasn't in a relationship with him, but he was like, "You are very intimidating."
Hmm.
And I'm like, "How, Sway? Like, elaborate." But I think it was more, I thought it was more like on the educational side because I do have a PhD, but um I think I'm a cool person, but apparently he was like, "Yeah, no, I don't think I'd be able to like date you because, you're very intimidating."
Pluto in the first house. That's Pluto in the first house.
Is that what
Yeah,
it is? Okay, I can see
yeah, I was
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
thinking,
for
I was
sure.
thinking of the Pluto in the first house. Absolutely.
But
Oh,
the detachment I definitely can see with the moon in the fourth house because sometimes I'm
mhm.
just when I see stuff and I'm like, well, it is what it is. Moving on. Can't do anything about it. So
Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
How does
Very
that measure up
Aquarian.
against the way you were raised? Did you see did you see nurturing relationships in the home when you were growing up?
well,
And look, there's
yes.
limits on any of these. If anything's too private, by all means.
Well, yeah, no, that's fine.
Yep.
Both of my parents were cancers. So it was a very interesting dynamic between the three of us, and then they ended up getting a divorce. So it's a lot of stuff happening. But I grew up in a very relatively big family. Like my mom was one of 9, 10. My dad was one of 13. So
Okay.
I've always
Mhm.
had like a lot of like aunts, uncles, cousins. So I'm like, I don't need to have kids. There's a lot of us. We'll be okay.
Sure, sure.
Mhm.
Okay, that measures up with that. Was the divorce amicable?
No,
Would you ever get married?
maybe
Maybe.
depending on
Okay.
the person. Maybe
Okay.
depending on the person.
Okay. All right. Any other thoughts? Anybody else got anything they want to?
Um, the relationship thing. I wonder, I was looking at the sun in the seventh house, and I thought that that would be like a place where you shined at in life in your relationships. Um, do you have a lot of friendships, partnerships?
I
Is
have
that
a lot of
important to
friends.
you?
Yes. Yeah, my friends are kind of like my family.
Hmm.
But yeah, I do have a lot of friends like, you need help, just tell me what you need. I'll figure out a way to make it happen. Like for example, one of my friend, well, a mutual friend that I know she was going through some really bad mental health stuff. So me
Hmm.
and her friend that she's closer with, we kind of like went over there, help her kind of get herself together. But little stuff like that, like that's not a
Hmm.
problem for me. Making sure that the people I care about are okay.
Okay, got you. This is a very deep chart. I think it's interesting to hear everybody else interpret. I mean, y'all got some good interpretations. I'm just, I guess at this point, I'm listening and paying attention, doing less talking this time. So don't mind me. I might jump in every now and then, but I don't know. Y'all sounding pretty good. That's all I
Y'all want to
got
talk
right now.
about y'all want to talk about the eighth house?
Yeah, I'm looking at the same thing.
Me
Because
too.
that,
I saw it.
Dun.
I spent the whole afternoon with you, Razi. The whole afternoon. I know I was only supposed to answer 2 questions, but I had to look at everything. So I'm looking at that Venus on her own, all
Mm,
hidden out
mm,
without aspects in the eighth house
oh, she's got a
with the
mm,
friend.
Chiron, with the Chiron.
Yeah, that's the
And I
one.
also noticed, Damien, that her Pluto is at 28. Her nodes are at 28. Her her
mm,
ruler is at 28.
mm.
And there's a whole pile of, like you said, past life.
Yeah.
And
See that?
Yeah.
so, and then the
See that?
Pluto in Libra and the Sun in the seventh. It's like working on relationships and almost
Mm-hmm.
finishing a mission, and then coming into this life with the soul saying to her, let's continue what we started in the previous life, because like we're at 28 degrees, let's just finish this off. You know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah,
You're
that's
interesting.
deep.
absolutely right.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely
deep.
right.
I like that.
Then
Okay.
From an esoteric point of view, when you look at it, most, again, like I said at the beginning, most of the charts we look at, the moon and the north node tend to show all the baggage that we're dragging into a lifetime. This chart saying, no, we're going to jury rig that stuff. We're going to get the balance just right, and then we're going to integrate it into this life. It's such an inversion in so many other charts that we see. That moon down there, it's well placed. That you know, you've got Neptune down there conjunct the south node. That can really be somebody who struggles with illusion. And has their own strange ideas about, you know, the way the world works and how what people mean when they communicate, what we mean when we communicate. But there's enough retrograde energy on that just to turn the switch down on that too, and make it something that's actionable and useful in an extremely cardinal and angular chart, you know. So and you nailed it with the 28 degrees too. Everything's sitting right there. I couldn't agree with you more. It's from a past life point of view, it's intensely positive.
I'm just going to finish off what I have to say, and then I'm going to listen to everybody. Because the past life is very heavy, and when she's asking if she's on the right path and what she should be doing in this life, because she's coming with so much gifts, right? And her son is actually in trine with the south node. We can see that, and her son doesn't have any difficult aspects, and then the north node is conjunct her son. And there's a lot of third house. I also look at the nodes when you ask for career. So I see the ninth house, and the past life, all the planets were on the bottom, like, and she was bogged down by relationships. She may have had very difficult relationships. So now Sun is in the seventh, going out into the world. All the personal planets are out, except the moon. The moon is at the bottom. So it's like if I was to say, what could you do? I would say, yes, you're on the right path, because I think you teach yoga, and then to work with, but instead of small groups, you know, have to take this out into the world, into the ninth house, as a female, like a healer, because there's something about you that's a shaman or a healer of woman, a warrior woman. Okay. Why? Because the Venus rules the entire chart, and she's in the 8th house. When you're in the 8th house, you can't shine. But it's meant to be, in this lifetime, you're meant to transform the feminine principle. And then when you have Mars in Taurus, it's ruled by Venus. So we're back again to Venus. And then bringing you in a past life, you may have been a guru, a mystic, a special teacher. You have Neptune conjunct the south node. So it's like being a healer of women of all ages, from children right up to Crohn's, because of the cancer in the 10th house. And that's what I have to say. I have nothing more to say.
Wow, that was deep.
Absolutely love it. That was awesome.
It's funny. It's funny because you said that, because I know one of the things when I looked up my my ninth house, or not my ninth house, my midheaven, and one of the things that came up for careers was marine biology, yoga, you know, children, stuff like that. And like, I'm currently a yoga teacher now, and one of my degrees was in marine science. So I was like, oh, I guess I am where I'm supposed to be. All right, let's keep it going.
Neptune.
Yeah, Neptune.
Must have been a deep dive.
Yeah.
Water.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's very cool.
Really glad you said that. Just like I said, I don't see downsides in this chart other than you might scare away potential love partners. I love it.
Well, I feel like, you know, if I'm scaring you away, maybe you weren't for me.
Right.
Absolutely.
That's exactly right.
There you go.
It's
That's that
a
Mars and
self-regulating thing from that, but also too, I think you've been given the capability to be loving, but there's enough fear attached to that too, with the Chiron up the top, of the expectation of pain or the fear of pain, which is why I asked if the divorce is amicable and what impression that left you with. My parents divorced very messily. They were hostile to each other for a long time. This is before, you know, I was very small when it happened. But and then when I'd catch them on their own, they'd reminisce, and it was pathetic, and it just annoyed the hell out of me.
That was what's happening. It was like, if you guys are going to do this, why didn't you just
why are you crying? You know, I hear
out?
how you talk to each other, and all of this sort of stuff, and that convinced me I'd never get married. But here I am now. I married late in life.
Oh,
Hence the question. I thought what was your takeaway from that, because it's having a bearing. It's sitting there as like a fulcrum between your relationship with yourself and your relationship with other people.
Yeah, because the biggest thing is like especially with my friends, like I tend to watch my friends, especially the ones who are in relationships or are married, and it's like I guess observe is probably the better way to say it. So it's like I know if you are willing to do the work to make it last, you can make it last. So I think that was just the biggest thing. My parents were on different planes of what they wanted in life and what they were willing to work out. So I was like, okay, I see why it didn't work for them, but that doesn't mean like that'll never work for me. It's just
Sure.
marriage is not on the top of my list. But, like I said, if there was somebody who, I really liked and I was really willing to be long term with, then I have no problem with getting married. But I'm so used to being by myself now. I'm like, oh, that's gonna be hard.
In my
Are you really
experience,
like
when something's more
spiritual?
likely to happen. Yeah.
Am I really spiritual?
Mhm.
I don't know, because I started going a little more into spirituality. Like my first, outside of the church, my first thing in the spirituality is tarot, and I worked as a tarot reader. And it was funny because one of my study buddies, she's big into astrology, and I was like, I don't know if I'm ready to go into astrology because I know astrology is deep. There's this very, very long and big rabbit hole. And then I fell into the very, very long and big rabbit hole. So I have that. I just finished a horary astrology course, and now I'm trying to figure out what I'm gonna do with my life, because it was so much. There was so much information, but it was fun. It was fun to learn it. It was fun to like see how people read charts differently, and that's what I like about this group too, is because it's like taking the modern uh information and then looking at the traditional information, and it's like, how do you put those together? Do you put those together? Like, is it a situational type of thing? So I like it.
It seemed like, yeah, I was looking at the Venus in the 8th house.
Yeah, one of my friends, she's like, you're a witch, right? And I'm like, ain't no witch. Because for her it's
And you got
Venus in
that
the 8th
Pluto in your
house.
first house.
And she's like, Venus in
And
the 8th, you're a witch, just accept it.
so also you have a yod.
Yeah,
which
and a
looks like
mystic and a triangle and the yacht and
yeah.
the mystic thingy going on. So it seemed
Yeah.
like it would be
Yeah.
really into a cult and things like that. But maybe you was made to think
I
that it was
love like
wrong.
things that are like not on the regular path, just learning about stuff. Like I love, dark history and ghost stories and all this stuff. Like some of my favorite podcasts are all horror story podcasts.
There's
So
Pluto
yeah.
and Saturn in the first house.
Yeah.
Definitely. Very cool.
I have a question actually, if you don't mind, Razi.
Yeah.
Looking at your 8th house, I was just curious, and then like your North Node in the 9th house, just thinking about like, is there a fear or maybe a potential like insecurity or vulnerability that you have if you were to pursue you go even deeper into yoga or tarot and astrology and pursue that as a career path?
I'm actually working towards that. So I'm gonna just go ahead and tell you, I have like a three realm uh business that I'm trying to figure out, which is kind of basing the tarot and the astrology, the yoga, and sound healing. Because I'm also, trained and certified to be a sound healer. So my thing is trying to figure out, one, how to put that all together in a way that is functional and long lasting, and two, how to make it so that it benefits everybody, because those are three or well, two or three are kind of like on opposite sides. Like, you're going to go for all the people who are very much into spirituality and woo, and then on the other side is like you want to be able to like help the normal people, but a lot of that stuff would probably make regular people run. You know what I mean? So that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I
It's a
know
tough
that's right.
balancing act. That's a
I
really
know
good
that
Yeah.
question
feeling
too,
all
Gianna.
the time.
Yeah.
All the time I know that feeling. I get it.
I think you posted in the
We
group
love
you were
people.
asking about pricing and things like that a little
Yes.
earlier. Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. Your second house is empty, but your eighth house has got a potentially powerful, but at the same time conditional placement up there. Like, and there's that word again, fear. You know, when we talk about
Mm,
fear, we normally talk about Saturn, but with Chiron, it's the expectation of fear. Um,
mm.
I think you're on a really good track there, Gianna. Do you have trouble taking money from other people for work that you give from the heart?
Yes. And I know I shouldn't, but it's one of those things because it's like I want to be able to, how you say, one, I want to be able to make it affordable for people, but one of the things that some of my friends like, you got to pay what you're worth. And I guess my thing is like I don't know what my worth is because I'm very new to the game and all of this. You know what I mean? One of the other
Mm.
things I do is I belly dance. I've been a professional belly dancer in Atlanta since I moved here. Um, so it was like I know what the pricing is and stuff like that, but I think when it comes to stuff like this, you don't want to, how you say, give me a second. When it comes to like more the spiritual gifts, I want to be able to price it where people, one, can take me seriously. Two,
Mm.
I'm not breaking somebody's bank to help them out,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
And I think
Okay, I
that's kind of
understand
where
your
I'm
answer.
at.
I think what you're saying's pretty normal though. I think generally for a new business, most people um, have a tendency to lowball because they don't have the experience that other people do. I know I've been there,
Mm-hmm.
done that, and a lot of
Mm-hmm.
other people do. And that conflict, internal conflict, I think is pretty common. But when we're looking at a placement like that, an expectation of fear, it feels like there's something, an expectation of pain. It feels like this might be something deeper lurking in there as well. Not necessarily something wrong, and it seems to center around the way you experience or share love. Um, so how you feel love within yourself, how you, and more importantly, how you share love with other people. Maybe it's in a strange house in that regard, with a strange partner there with Chiron sitting right in it. And I'm just curious how that may play out. I don't know. With Taurus, there may be something resistant, maybe something slow, something transactional, something, you know what I'm saying? Or where I'm
Mm-hmm.
going with that. I think
Mm-hmm.
the rest of your chart moves on well-oiled tracks. It moves so quickly, but there's this part over here. It's important. It's a planet in its domicile. Um, but it's by the same token, it's divorced, sort of detached from the bigger picture of what's happening on there. Um, but it's a personal planet. You can't ignore it at the same time, too, you know? So
Mm-hmm.
I've done a lot of talking without really giving a lot of answers, but it's it's just an interesting placement that jumps out at me too. And again, when Gianna started talking about that, about money and the way you work with other people and things like that, I think that's really important. And hello, Gianna, too. I didn't see you come in. Yeah.
Can I just mention that her MC is in Cancer, and so she has she's born to nurture other people, so she's got that desire within her, and then that's rubbing up against her moon in Aquarius, which sees things in a very practical manner. So and I don't know if it's with all Aquarius, but I know my little Aquarian is all about the money and how to make it. And so there's those two very opposing aspects of self. I just wrote something down, and I think it was in relation to the yod. And what I said was, although you were born to nurture other people, how you do it might need to be from a more detached place. So incorporating both of those things, having provided yourself the freedom to do your inner exploration. And I think that was referring to the Jupiter. Where's Jupiter again? In the third house.
Mm-hmm.
So the Jupiter retrograde, that strong desire to for your own inner growth, which I think can potentially be maybe try to heal others in order to avoid going really, really deep for yourself. And I feel like that deep inner exploration is potentially how you serve others. And so the fruits of that labor, it's almost like it's you get to maybe even be a speaker, so you're speaking to large groups of people, or creating programs for large groups of people where you do your deep inner work and you bring that forth. And so you can serve quite a lot of people in the way that you want to, while nurturing yourself and others, and not even have to earn the money that your Aquarius moon yearns for, but not have to feel guilty about it.
Right. Interesting.
It's interesting actually when you were giving that breakdown there, Sandra, you were describing Chiron in so many ways. The wounded healer, the one who could heal other people but could not heal himself. But you're saying that she will not heal herself, which is a really interesting way of packaging that. It says the same thing, but it applies will. It also introduces will into the equation, that you are consciously not healing yourself too, and that's a really interesting thing to unpack. How does that
Yeah.
feel? Do those words resonate with you, or
would be the Mars in Taurus again? Then it's that resistance to that action, which is the key to all of it.
Well, that goes in with the Aquarius moon too. That's keeping everybody at arm's length, just far enough away to that the intimacy and the messiness of human interaction is not a factor.
Well, there's a reason for that, yes, because of that Venus without any aspects. It's like, don't touch me.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna be here. But I see a lot where you're serving a lot of people, you're helping a lot of people, but you're forgetting about yourself. Is that possible?
Probably, yeah.
I
do have the thing of this, like, I love you, but I'm gonna love you from there. But the funny thing is that I love getting hugs. I love hugs, but I'm like, okay, I got my hug, now go away. It's like black cat energy,
You need to learn to trust.
You're looking at your watch, that's 5 seconds.
Yes.
Yeah.
Be like, the cat be like, I'm gonna come over here and I'm gonna like just lay on you, but don't you dare touch me.
What do they say? After 20 seconds of hugging somebody, the brain starts to produce hormones that create connection to people. So right around the 19-second mark, you're getting a bit
and he's like, and I'm out.
Hug, Yeah. Now we're
which
getting
is
somewhere.
which is actually oxytocin, and that is the nurturing. That's cancer. It's like
this is true.
Yes.
You've got some real serious Marcus Aurelius energy in the first house. Stoic, the obstacle is the way energy with that Moon-Pluto conjunction. Not Moon, sorry, Saturn-Pluto conjunction too. And that again too, that's the, if we're looking at this as a locomotive chart, then that's what's pulling this whole train along. So that would complement what Sandra's saying about, you retaining this degree of distance and independence and detachment, and all of that sort of stuff.
And actually that kind of ties in as well, doesn't it? Because it's like, Pluto is there for transformation of self, and Saturn's like putting the skids on, just not too fast. And that transformation of self obviously comes from that deep inner work. So, it's the balance between the two.
It's annoying.
I have a question for you, Razi. With respect to expressing emotions, were you, because I saw that Saturn too, and since it rules the 4th house, it could have been that you were brought up not to express you had very powerful emotions that you weren't able to express. And this is your power, this is your talent to express them, but your upbringing said no, it was too much.
Yeah, especially when I got like sad, like if I was, if I was crying and whatnot. My dad was a Marine, so that wasn't really a thing in the house. So I just, and I guess I got to a point where I realized, like, it's so long as I do what everybody tells me, everybody's going to leave me alone. You know what I mean? So
Ah,
it's especially in terms of like, you know, high school stuff, getting grades, whatever. So like say for example, no, like in my family, they didn't want you to come in with a C in the house. Like you
oh,
couldn't get a C or lower. So I was like, so all I had to do is not get a C, which means I can get a B and keep it moving. And that's exactly what I did.
my
Mhm.
God, yes. So I see
Real
that moon like having to hold everything together emotionally. So if it was not detached, it would have collapsed.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Oh
and
wow.
because the family environment is strict because of Capricorn, and then the moon is like it needed to detach to hold this together. But at the same time, it was holding together the family, all the little bits and pieces. But it's still, I always see the moon in Aquarius as the black sheep. I always will, you
Yeah.
know, or the, yeah.
Yeah. Like I get a lot of times like my family is like, why don't you come home often? I'm just like, why don't y'all ever come see me? Like the only time I see most of my family is when I go home, and then I'm to the point where I'm just like, it's a hassle to go home. I'm good. Like usually, for example, like if I want to see my mom that bad, I will fly her out here and she'll stay with me for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But excuse me. But yeah, I'm like, if you guys want to see me that bad, you know where I am. I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. So when I'm ready to come home, I'll come home, but don't expect me to come home anytime soon.
detached Aquarian energy. Definitely.
There's so much peace. There's so much peace in that because the family is really a point of contention.
Yeah. I am
I
very
know.
much about, you know, keeping the peace, keeping everybody nice and calm and, you know, relatable if possible. If not, we got to figure out what's going on so we can fix it and get back to that state of calm and peace.
Yeah.
Libra.
Libra
Mhm.
rising
Libra.
again.
Yeah.
Libra, looking for
Definitely
love
Libra.
and
How have we done so far? I think we've done a good job. I think we've figured
Yeah.
some of the key stuff out pretty quick. You've got a wonderful chart in that regard.
Yeah, this was great. Thank you so much.
hope.
And it's good to hear everyone's intake because like for example with tarot and medium and dead, the whole esoteric thing I would have never even thought about. And the Chiron and Venus thing that Gianna said too, would have never even considered it.
Consider it because Venus. There's two things that I found that were dominant in your chart. Jupiter
Mm.
is dominant, so that's the south node ruler, and
Mhm.
Venus, and that's money, right? That's what you want. You say, how
Mhm.
can I
And it's like
get my
house of
work?
other people's money. How do I get that? Give me it now.
Get it? You get that because you go to the house 2 and you get it from Pluto. You get it
Mm.
from, I wrote something. I just wrote things all over the place, let me tell you. But you're going to get, first you have to go to the houses of the earth houses. And so you go to house 2,
Mm.
house 6, and house 10. So first you have to find out what your talents are,
Mhm.
you know, and they come from Scorpio. Scorpio's 8th house. And you have a planet in the 8th house. So it's
Mhm.
the feminine principle, your strength, your body, your powerful emotions. And I think it's like your capacity to transform. And then you take that into the 6th house, which is Pisces, and you like kind of work on that and finish it up and get it prepared. And then you take it to the 10th house, which is to be this nurturing caretaker for others. So you were to work. I think your strong point is working with emotions and women and females and families. And so for example, when you said, how do I combine all of that? What I would want, I would like to go to see you and lie down on the front, go a yoga session, after which we sit on the floor, you throw me some cards, you look at the natal chart, and that's just everything.
Oh, I like that.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, you have some nice music playing in the background. You have some incense burning, and you know you decide how much you want to earn in a month, right?
Mhm.
And then you say, okay. And so if I want to earn that, then I have to have a certain amount of people if I don't want to earn too much. And then you can say, okay, I can see one person a day. And then you multiply. That's how I do it, like how much money do I need this month? And then how many clients? And,
Right. That makes
I'm like
sense.
you. I don't like to charge a lot. I want to be able to be affordable because
Right.
I really like tarot because I read tarot and astrology, but I'm not gonna ask somebody to pay more than $50. But I've seen people charge $400 for tarot reading. I have.
Mhm.
That's a lot.
I have
You got to be
$80,
able to do a lot for
90,
that.
100. Or they'll charge you $40 for 10 minutes. It's too
Mm.
much. Too much. It's too much because it's not worth. It's what I do. It's not what I do. It's not that I'm not worth more, but
Mhm.
you want it to get to a certain amount of people. And if they keep sending you people, then you're gonna be all right.
Yeah,
If your work is quality, you're never gonna be without work. That's how I see it.
that's true. That's true. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You mind
Just
if I
adding
add
to that
something,
though,
Razi?
sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I like what Tarot and Medium was saying about the healing. I see that too. And looking at your sixth house, I do see that it's empty, but the ruler is in the third house and conjunct the south node. So it's kind of giving me that feeling like definitely towards healing and like helping people explore their past and like
Mhm.
helping people maybe like see a way through what might not be clear to them. And like, does that resonate with you career wise? Is something that you like might want to do?
A little bit, yeah. I think that would probably be more in line with the astrology and the sound healing. Because one of the things about sound healing, they say like it can sometimes bring up emotions, especially if
Hmm.
they're like kind of like jarred down and buried. It can bring up emotions, but for some people that helps with healing. It's just
Yeah,
getting them entrained into a certain wavelength so that they're open to being uh I guess healing and working through their emotions and problems.
more receptive.
Thank you. That's a better word for it.
Hmm.
I think just approaching that in this topic in a slightly different way, I think the magic ingredient for you to help make sense out of all of this is to reconcile that opposition between the first house and the seventh house. I think
Mm-hmm.
it may answer some internal questions you may have or some conflicting instincts about your relationship with yourself and with the rest of the world. And I think that may be somehow pivotal in the middle of why or how your business will grow when you're able to find that equilibrium and the balance between those two opposites.
Okay.
I think again, I'm going back to this mystic triangle, rectangle right in the middle of the chart. I think it's certainly the most powerful placement on your chart, and I think in a lot of ways working with that is going to be the key. I think we've talked about you've got your instinct when around people is to detach or to maintain a safe degree of distance, and I think that's something to look at as a question in a way too. And I think being able to find a way to understand why that mechanism's in place, I wonder if that's somehow interfering with your. When I look at Venus conjunct Chiron, maybe that's got something to do with the way you're valuing what you're doing. I'm putting some hardline words on that. That may not be the way that it's expressing.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there are questions about authenticity that go beyond the fact that you're just new. Maybe you know, maybe you have ideas about how love should be given and expressed and things like that. And when you start working with light, when you start working with energy, when you start working with people in a vulnerable state that are coming for healing, it's inevitably going to steer you back to love. And the interesting thing is you've got this powerful placement up there in the eighth house. but it's not really connected to a lot of other big things that are happening on the chart, which means that you have to go to other parts of the chart in order to find an answer to that question on how that's going to express. And I think from what I can see, that first house energy, that powerful first house energy, that seventh house energy that your friend described as intimidating, I think the answer is somewhere along that line between those 2 points. I think if you're able to understand that and unpack that puzzle on why, because it sounds, when I saw your face when you told me what he said, it had come as a shock and a surprise to you. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
So I was like, what?
And that's it. And I think maybe you need to explore that. And that's the seventh house. That's platonic partnerships and relationships too. It's not just marriage and romantic relationships and things like that. And again, that's the eighth house as well. There's such a connection between those two houses. And that may, in a way, explain why you're getting some static, internal static on how to charge other people, how to work with other people, and things like that. Maybe you might need to sit with that and explore that for a while. That eighth house pattern's not connected to enough other stuff going on the chart to give you solutions by itself. But you've got some very, very pressing patterns on the chart that are demanding attention. And if we're looking at it from an esoteric point of view, there are things that are needing to be looked at in this lifetime. You're given these beautiful tools. It annoys me, actually. The esotericists say when between lives we plan our chart, we map it out. And I'm annoyed at myself for not planning one like this. This is so, you can have one of these. I was looking at this thinking it from that point of view.
It's funny because somebody told me it was like, we sign up for being here and we pick who we want to be born from, and I'm like, man, are you sure I wasn't voluntold? Because this is ghetto. I don't like
it. That's the ego. That's your ego talking. Of course,
is that what it is?
Yeah, your soul decided to come here. I'm all for that kind of argument. I mean, for me to know where I'm going into this life, I have to know where I come from. It's like if I'm a tree, if I can't find my roots, I don't know which tree, what's the fruit that's what I'm gonna be bearing if I don't know what's at the bottom of the tree. So I want to know the past, even if I'm inventing it. I know business. Yeah. it has to make sense to me. I believe, of course we're not gonna like some of it. It's like, oh God. But when you understand that, you stop complaining. And you say, and then everything gets easier. Because then you realize that this is not the last time. And you just stop taking things personally. It's because it's the soul is just using your ego, your body, because the soul wants to know, and then he wants to run back and tell source how it goes, what happened at school on Earth. And then I just let it go. And I say, all right, I'm not going to cry and I'm going to fuss. Just tell me what to do. Show me the North Node, I'm gone.
See, but even then, I don't see a lot of good, tell me what to do energy on here too. I think you are going to go out and try and find your own road anyway, and your own path and do things your own way. And we're seeing the corners of that rectangle point off to higher learning and lower learning. So I think that's where your answers are going to be. At the very least, you're going to be surrounded by people who are doing what you're doing it successfully or not successfully. You're going to have all the evidence that you need to do that. But I get a lot of observer energy from your chart too. Somebody who's standing back and measuring, and that, especially with that Aquarius moon down there, they are the consummate dispassionate observer. The one who stands back and watches what's going on around them. They collate their data and make their decisions based on what they see. So I think being inside those circles and moving around people, getting in touch with your own spirituality, you've got an abundance of it, especially that third house Neptune placement down in the south mode. You've actually managed to smuggle in spirituality from a previous lifetime, just enough of it to give you a good kickstart right at the beginning. But you need to go higher, you need to go further and go out there into higher learning. Follow a star in that regard. And I think that if you can satisfy those four parts of that, I think that opposition you've got between the self and the way you're connecting with the world is going to start resolving. There's probably not enough energy right now on you to ask for help or to reach out and to make yourself vulnerable to other people in order to learn that way. Would that be a fair assessment?
Say that again one more time.
There might not be enough vulnerability in you right now to put yourself in the hands of other people in order to learn lessons about intimacy and trust and all of that sort of stuff. That might be something that you need to develop and grow.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if that's correct. But if
It does
that's,
make sense.
yeah, or it just
And
might be counterintuitive. So that's what I think. I think all that career stuff out there, there's potential for it, but again, we're talking about empty houses, and those planets are all invested in different parts of your life. And I think by working with those planets in their state as they are now, and creating harmony and flow in between that is going to start fueling those planets, fueling those parts of your life. I know that's a vague answer, but at least in terms of bottom line dollars and taxable income.
Yeah.
But in order to do this in the long game, you need to find some sort of an internal connection to what you're doing. You need to feel a connection to it, especially this work. There needs to be heart in it. If you're doing it just for the money, that might not be enough for you. If you're doing it for the achievement and being able to walk into a room full of yoga instructors and for them to all say, "Oh wow, it's Razi." If that's your goal, there might not be enough of that in there to keep you focused and moving in that direction. So that's my feeling. I think maybe if you start working, especially again to maybe in the back of your mind, just keep some attention on what your friend said about, he wouldn't date you, he'd get you to help him move. He'd come to you with his problems and things like that, but you're a bit scary to date. And just take a step back from that. Rather than dating, is there a statute of limitations on that? Maybe other people are feeling that way, and that may not be something that you're doing. It may be simply a way that you see the world, and that's a trap for us people with strong Aquarius energy on our chart. We tend to take the world as we see it, not as the way everybody else experiences it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a natural process. If somebody says that, they're intimidated, they're not for you. They're saying, I'm going to have to step back. You're too much. And the right man will not be intimidated. And remember that here we're having eclipses in Libra and Aries. And it's going to touch you have the sun in Aries. So there's going to be changes in that area of your life anyway. Because you can't avoid it.
Yeah. I knew that was one of the things they were saying is like, yeah, if you're going to be having relationships now. And I was just like,
But that being said, we've done 2 readings for 2 people. We did a reading for Beth, and sorry, the second wasn't a reading, but in discussion we found that Michelle can also be intimidating to her workmates. She has been in the past, and she's got one of the softest, gentlest personalities you could meet in a group like this. Bethy, on the other hand, man, she'd beat you up. I can see that if she didn't like what you were saying. And I don't mean any disrespect to her for that. She's a strong woman, but both of them have had the feedback that they're intimidating by other people. So maybe when you hear those words, that's something that you need to explore, because there's a lot of difference, but there's a lot of distance between those two in terms of what qualities people may find intimidating.
Yeah.
It all connects back to what you want. I'm assuming from looking at your chart, it's not romantic love. I don't, you know what I mean? And I think you're open to the idea of it. But I think there's bigger pressing things on your chart and things like that. I'm just putting that out there. Maybe it feels right, maybe it doesn't, but I'd want to understand that more in a way that I'm not thinking that there's something wrong with me. I wouldn't think that at all. You seem perfectly fine to me. You seem incredibly strong and functional.
I think I'm personally okay.
I think you're perfectly fine. But when you get feedback from the rest of the world like that, sometimes, especially if things aren't all exactly the way you want them right now, then maybe there's some thing in there that needs to be explored. I think it's easy to say that, hey, take me or leave me. There's a lot of that rhetoric around at the moment. It's the same as people talking about truth. Sometimes they're not telling truth; they're just spitting out any bullshit that the first thing that comes into their mind. Seeing a lot of that too. So there's a lot of stuff. If you eliminate everybody else from the equation, it's very, very easy to live a certain way. I'm just saying maybe there's a bit of room to entertain that and explore that and maybe unpack a bit of that in the hope that it might just improve your relationship. And it sounds like being able to unpack that might help you understand your relationship with your clients a little more and what you want from the takeaway, because those two parties are involved in a position like that, the partner and the self, and that sounds like where the schism is, the division between that you're struggling with. Anyway, that's just my thought.
So it sounds like the big work for me at the moment would be not really understanding, but working through my first and seventh house.
I think it's good. It's just going to keep rubbing up against you all the time. I think it's always going to happen. It's such a pivotal part of your chart placements. I think as long as you're learning and growing, especially as far as I'm concerned, I really understood the universe is infinite, then anything's possible, then everything's spiritual. Whether you're a spiritual person or not, you're in an infinite universe. Everything is spiritual about that. It's happening whether it doesn't require you to understand or to be a part of it. So for me, I just accept spirituality. I don't have to put a label on it. I don't have to get a diploma in it. It's happening all the time.
Right.
So, but as long as you're consciously part of a spiritual universe, as long as you're learning, growing, and interacting with others, I think your chart's going to work the way that it's designed to work. It's going to help you understand your relationship between yourself and with the rest of the world. You can see it in that rectangle pattern there. You've got two strong oppositions, and they're all relying on those other 3 points to resolve. And you're given all the tools to do it. It sounds like you're doing it now. There's nothing wrong with you. That feedback that you've got, maybe that's not ideal, but it doesn't disempower you in any way. Antoinette is right. If somebody's intimidated by you, they're not the right one for you from a relationship point of view. But from a client or a business point of view, if that's something that you're broadcasting on that wavelength as well, then that's something that's worth understanding. For no other reason than to make the flow of energy between those 4 points smoother, because that's all solution points. Anytime you do any work on any one of those 4 points, the other 3 are going to benefit.
Okay.
Yeah. If you're struggling with your sense of self, go take a course. If you're struggling with your beliefs about your own life and the way things work and the way spiritual impacts you, go see your friends, or start a venture with somebody else, or something like that. You don't have to sit there in the dark with the problem and wrestle with it. You've got all these 4 points there to work with. So, and if you can somehow get energy flowing through all 4 of those, everything's somehow going to work. And I think your business will grow. I think your relationships will improve. If there was somebody that you're supposed to be with, you'll start attracting them. All that sort of stuff will start happening. Your chart is like an engine that's designed to run at peak efficiency. It's a great chart from that point of view. Yeah.
Nice.
I have one other thing that just I'm noticing and thinking about, like the Pluto and Aquarius, and it coming in close transit or conjunction with your natal moon. Just thinking about like maybe also for relationship development, or just thinking about like maybe these emotions that you suppressed or oppressed as a child because you weren't able to express yourself. I think that with this transit, it might be something that's going to come up for you to do your own self-healing, and that vulnerability to face those emotions that you weren't able to face as a child will then also potentially be able to lead you into a direction where you're finding partnership and that vulnerability with a partner. And I don't know, I can't like necessarily pinpoint timing, but just with Pluto and Aquarius transit, and I know that's a, multi-decade situation, but just like addressing those oppressed childhood fears or emotions that are still kind of rooted within. It just keeps coming up that that's going to help you find your divine feminine, and also like your openness to explore various career paths, because you'll have the confidence to do just with like the North Node also so in close proximity to your MC line and North Node in Gemini with Jupiter in Gemini, just seeing the expansion there. So yeah, I don't know how you
Yes,
meet with that.
exactly. Yes. And then when it gets Pluto gets there, you may want to do a past life regression because you will probably find some past life trauma that had to do with your beliefs because Jupiter is beside Uranus. And Uranus is like the Akashic records, you know. So it's a storehouse of memory. And where the moon is the memory that's inside the body. It's like what some in, you know, that's what I see. Yes, and the transits that's going on now, it's all going to happen naturally, like it was meant to happen, you know. And everything is like, it's like a clockwork at natal chart. Everything happens when it's supposed to happen,
Okay.
you know.
That was cool.
But you
on
definitely
both of
come into
those.
have relationships. Not like me that I have Saturn square Venus. No. So for sure. They can't take me.
That was cool. Thank you. I'm gonna have to
You will-
pay attention to the transits. I totally forgot about the transits. Jupiter is in Gemini.
No, man, you have to pay attention to transit.
Yeah.
So how are you feeling, Razi?
One
How did we
other
do?
observation, Damien, we just had Jupiter and Uranus back in April conjunct, and it's conjunct in Razi's chart. So are you feeling like this is something that she would experience more intensely? And for her, it was on her Venus. It was on her Venus and Chiron.
That's interesting. That sounds more like a question for Razi.
I don't know. Like maybe I'm not to the point where I sense energy that well, but like things have been, I don't know if I guess weird for the past couple of weeks. Like there's like so much happening, but it's happening all at once.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So it's
Oof.
like
Uranus.
I just want to sit on my couch and go and like just watch anime till whatever is going on passes, but I know I can't. So it's like I just gotta like take it all one bit at a time, you know?
Yeah.
Mm.
Wow. I remember what Gianna said. Yeah, if you look at the transits, Uranus is going through the 8th house, Jupiter is going through, and it's about to touch the ruler of the chart and the ruler of your sun, of the final dispositor of your sun. So it's gonna it's gonna liberate you. It's gonna liberate that Venus and change all your value systems and your beliefs. And then it's going to get in, then it's gonna touch your north node, and then you'll have clarity to where it is you want to go.
Okay.
Because it's places that you've been before. Jupiter, you've been there before. It's past life. You remember.
Okay.
Jupiter
This feels like a
retrograde.
lot, but it's really good. I got a lot more understanding out of my
Well, you
chart,
have
which I
how many of us
appreciate.
are here tonight? 9 astrologers.
Yes. That's why I was like, this is what it feels like to be read by a group of astrologers. This is amazing. Everybody should go through this at least once.
Sydney's done
This
it,
is a
and
group. When Damien created this group, it was like, I can't believe it. You do an online course, and then you get a Facebook page, and you actually get to meet these people. It's great, McKellen.
Yeah,
it's been awesome.
Nobody else does this. Nobody else does this on Udemy. Let me
Look,
tell you.
I'm sitting here blown away. I've got to be honest. I mean, when we first started, it was a bit stop-start, and everybody was sort of finding their voice. Everybody was, you know, blushing when they were talking, and very, very careful with what they said, and you know, which is normal and stuff like this. But we've had so many strong voices today, and each time we do this, and everybody's bringing their own perspectives, and their own view take on this. And look, I'm amazed. I'm humbled by it. I think I'm so grateful for this journey we were all taking. I know it sounds cliche, everybody's talking about this sort of stuff, but I never anticipated this. I didn't see this coming. So if you're sitting here thinking I had a master plan and this was it and we were all going to go in this direction, no, not for a second, you know, not for a second. So, you know, it's as much a surprise as it is to me that it is for everybody else. So I'm just really, really really, really feel really blessed to be a part of this group. So, you know, and to somehow we all manage to treat each other really, really well too. And that for me, especially for online communities, is really rare these days. I'm not seeing a lot of that. So I think we're on the right track. I think keeping this group closed and just doing this kind of work, I think that's I think we're on the right track. Everything's going well. So we've got all the right people in the right place. So full marks to you too, Razi. You only did one group before and then you took center stage too. So I wouldn't expect less from this chart. So full kudos to you for that. And yeah, it's a lovely chart. It's an absolute pleasure to work with. So, you know,
Thank you so much.
thank you for that. Just probably jumping the gun a bit here, but I've been talking with Michael as well, and we're looking at starting a Discord group soon too. Discord's an online app where we can, one of the problems with Facebook is when you post something, it just disappears off into the ether very, very quickly. Discord is a lot more persistent. So we're able to track conversations that we've had, develop threads a lot more effectively. It's also got voice chat built in by design. So we're able to, people can spontaneously create conversations or groups and talk through things. We were talking about some exercises we can do maybe where even if people want help with their reading techniques and stuff, you know, we can sit in with people while they give readings to other members of the group and, you know, give critique and feedback as they're going. We can integrate video into it and all of that sort of stuff too. So that's something we're looking at and thinking about. So I don't know if I've jumped the gun there, Michael, by putting that out there, but I'm excited about this. And I look at this energy we've got in this group and I apply it to a Discord community. I think it could be something quite powerful.
I'm in a couple of Discord communities, and Discord is really great with that. So that would be cool to have
it's a real community building
Discord
tool. Yeah. So, and again,
I
too,
liked it.
we can maintain the privacy and again, too, people can spontaneously do things that doesn't rely on somebody else driving it at the same time too. So yeah, we're excited to see how that pans out. Yeah, but I'm saying that purely based on the energy today and the, you know, these groups and the way these chart reading groups organize themselves and how we just seem to synergize. So you know, I'm hoping we can do more with that. Yeah. How do you feel, Razi?
I feel good. I feel good. I feel like I'm definitely gonna have to watch this again and take notes. I don't want to say I feel drained. I think it's just more like contemplative.
Yeah.
So it's like it was a lot, but I like it.
Yeah.
So thank you everybody who joined in and talked through it and watched through it.
Absolutely.
And
Thank you, Razi.
it's helping me to learn
Nope.
how to read a chart. So I love it.
Wonderful. Does anybody else want to add anything before I stop recording? I'll still leave the group open, so if anybody wants to talk after we can, but does anybody want to add anything just as a final note to this conversation?